Do you remember what was the very first idea related to your story you've written? Okay, that's better. I'll tell you that. Well, yes, but the very first idea has evolved so much that it's no longer recognizable in the book. But yeah, the very first idea of, I would say, this specific book, in this book specifically, was a scene I wrote the very first day I started writing in 2021, which was basically, it was the day after I had streamed. And it was, I can't remember if it was after I said to you guys that I was gonna take a break, or if it was before that time. Maybe it was before that. Maybe it was a few streams before. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly when. But basically, it was the day after I streamed. And I woke up and then I had this idea. And it was just a scene, a dialogue scene between two characters. Well, not really two characters. It was between a character and like having an audience with some important people. And this character was bringing news of something really dire. And this character was, I'm trying to not give spoilers because, yeah, this character had dire news and it was somebody important. However, somebody important, but not in the circle of the people that the character was bringing the news to, because these people didn't know who this character was, but they could see that he was somebody powerful, and that they should pay attention to what he was gonna say. And I just, this is the background that was in the back of my mind. I didn't think about it actively, but I just had this idea and I just literally just started writing this scene. And it was mostly dialogues. A lot of this book was actually born out of dialogues, which is weird because there aren't a lot of dialogues in the book. Like, there are a lot of dialogues, but dialogues are not the main thing in the book. Like, I think it's fairly balanced. There isn't too much talk actually happening, except for one character where there is one chapter where there is a lot of talk happening. But most of the chapters, it's more things moving along rather than people just talking. But how it was born, yes, a lot of this book for me was born through dialogues. Like when I world build, I don't sit down and write, okay, the world is like this, and the laws of physics are like that, and the laws of magic is like that, and then this is what happens, and this is who the bad guy is, and this is how the politics is, and this is what this person wants. I don't plot like that. I plot through dialogue scenes that then may or may not be in the book, but they have happened. So I plot with characters talking and not explaining things to each other, but like having a conversation. And mostly, that's how I mostly plot. With basically dialogue scenes that reveal more than explain, they reveal essential plots and essential elements of the world. So that's how the book was born. And I'm thinking about that scene I don't really want to reveal too much because it does contain some elements. Like, the scene itself does not exist in the book, but some of the elements in it, a lot of the elements in it, have become part of the plot in a way or another. They've been transformed completely, but the topics are in the book. And so yeah, that was it. Was it a good answer, Inusa? Are you happy with it? I'm gonna skip this song. Yes, thank you. I wonder where it will be in the book. Yeah, but as I say, it's more like spread around everywhere. That scene is not going to be in the book. However, like, there is no scene such as that in the book. However, there was a similar scene in the first version of the book, which, if you happen to remember, when I wrote Alassian Born, I first, it had a different name, it had a different title. Not even sure it had a title at the time. So when I started writing in 2021, I wrote for 3 months, and I wrote what I thought was going to be 80% of the first book of a trilogy, which had the same characters and story as this book, but actually an entirely different plot. And I wrote that, and this scene that was originally the scene I began the book with, basically, like this, the scene that was the birth of this book, that scene was in there. A scene very similar to that was in that version of the book. But then I got to 80%, I was drawing near to the ending of the book, and then I realized this is shit. The story is really cool, it has potential, some of the characters are really cool and they have potential, but the book itself is not gonna cut it, it's crap. So I threw it away, and then I went into deep thinking for a few days. I pondered whether I should focus on a simpler story, just leave this story in a drawer for a while and write something completely different, write something simpler, until I was inspired by a book I read. Then I was inspired because it basically opened my eyes to the possibility of a completely different, like a different point of view to be used in the book. It opened up for me the option to use the omniscient perspective, if you know what I'm talking about, while I was convinced I was supposed to write in limited perspective. And in my book, I actually do both now, which is something that some people, some authors and some publishers really hate, and they don't like that, but it's just the way this book had to be, so it is. So I was inspired, and then I decided, no, I am going to write this book because now I know how I need to write it. And so I threw away the first 80,000 words it was, and I wrote the current version of Alassian Born, super, super excited. This is how your whole thing evolved, vaguely, without spoilers.